Palworld is a super strange game. It had absolutely no hype whatsoever before its release, and its developer was mostly unheard of. And then suddenly they released their game onto Steam and bam! 2 million concurrent players. This came completely out of nowhere. It was truly an overnight success. So you might think that this sudden burst of popularity would be a sign of a good game that people overwhelmingly enjoy, right? Well, not quite. This feels like Jingling Keys, the video game. Full of hackers. Hackers that destroy your base. Hackers who kill you and steal all your party pals. Bleh. Too overrated and buggy AF. Turning off motion blur doesn't actually turn off motion blur, and it hurts my eyes. I think I might be I can't read that one, actually. This is the game that killed Tupac. Wait, for real? Palworld had incredible overnight success, but it isn't without its controversy. And you know, I've actually done quite a few of these negative review videos in the past, but most of the time, I'm usually reading the reviews of a game that I actually, like, enjoy. But I'm just gonna come clean with this one. I don't like this game. I don't like Palworld. I think this game's kinda garbage. And for most of the time I played this game, I was just, like, mad about it. I can't fast travel back to my base unless I run to a fucking... Oh. And I can't climb this rock because the game doesn't want me to. The game doesn't want me to do it. And for some reason, the geniuses that made the game made the interact button F, when in every other game ever made, it's E. And I kept pressing E by accident over and over again, and it just made me really unhappy. Right? Every single...
Fucking rips off shirt.
I'm gonna get
reveals muscular chest.
I'm gonna get fucking Larry in a minute. This is...
It's gonna punch a drywall.
So sorry in advance for being super negative in this video, but yeah, I don't like this game. So whilst I was reading through all the negative reviews, I was just like, yeah, 100%, absolutely right, completely dog shit. And I think the ones that I agree with the most are the ones that say something like this. This game has a liberal 4 to 8 hours of content before you hit a brick wall. Grind World utilizes a ton of very long timers that are completely unnecessary in a single player / co-op game. It is not Ark or Rust. There's no PvP, so there's no actual reason to make people wait up to 72 hours for an egg to hatch on hard difficulty. The crafting forces you to sit and hold the interact key for the entire duration of the craft, and some of them take minutes. In fact, scratch that. All of those reviews use way too many words to describe it. It can actually be summed up even quicker than that. Just 3 words. Valheim with Pokemon. And I can't stress enough, I hate Valheim. I really hate that game. It's just, it's so bad. I know a lot of people like Valheim, but that game just really, But at least Valheim is actually a functioning video game, you know? Palworld doesn't even get that part right. Palworld is completely infested with bugs and glitches, ranging from annoying bugs that make the game frustrating to bugs that are super funny. Oh, look, I'm in the sky. Holy shit. Oh, I'm gonna die. Wait, I'm gonna die.
Where are you?
I'm in the sky. I fucking to bugs that literally make the game unplayable. In fact, about 1/3 of all of the negative reviews were all complaining about one single game-breaking bug. Absolute trash. I played the game for 20 hours and all my progress reset completely. Fix the issue where players' save files corrupt on dedicated servers. This issue is so common that people talking about it makes up the majority of the negative reviews about the game. In fact, I personally had 2 save files corrupt in this exact way after about 10 hours on each save file. Fortunately, I'm not amongst the people who spent 500 hours in their world before losing their save. And in a game with literally hundreds of hours worth of grueling grind, having people lose their save progress en masse like this isn't particularly acceptable. At first, it can be forgiven, right? Because it's an early access game that had an unexpected popularity explosion. But after they made tens of millions of dollars in about 2 weeks, you'd think they'd spend some of that money on, like, actually, you know, fixing their game and stuff. But these issues have gone completely unresolved for months now, as have all the really annoying minor bugs that the game is full of. Not to mention the issues with Palworld's official servers. The multiplayer has already been ruined by hackers. Every official NA server is riddled with Chinese symbols spamming third-party sales. Cheaters roam around official servers and demolish everyone's bases for no reason. So you can't play the game online with your friends unless you use a dedicated server. And if you do use a dedicated server, your save file is likely to get corrupted after the game updates anyway, so you'll lose your progress regardless. It's not exactly ideal, I'll be honest. The negative reviews did also point out something else that I just completely agree with. The game doesn't have its own identity. It feels kind of soulless too. I wish they were more creative instead of piggybacking on Ark a little too much. This review makes an incredibly good point, but I actually think they understate the point a little bit, because it's not just Ark that it's piggybacking off. In fact, that one Valheim with Pokemon review was saying basically the same thing. Literally everything in Palworld is taken directly from another game. It has creature mechanics from Pokemon. It has crafting mechanics from Valheim and Ark. It has base building mechanics from Valheim. Breath of the Wild climbing, Breath of the Wild fonts and sound effects. It even has Dark Souls dodge rolls for some reason. And all of these things are taken wholesale from other games and just copy-pasted into Palworld without changing a single thing about it. Now you might be thinking to yourself, but H2, there's no such thing as being original anymore, and these games you brought up didn't necessarily invent their ideas either. And you know what? That's absolutely true. Breath of the Wild didn't invent climbing, Ark didn't invent crafting, and Dark Souls didn't invent dodge rolls. But what these games did do is they took a concept like climbing or dodge rolling and they made an iteration of it in their game that feels unique. Lots of games have climbing in them, but Breath of the Wild's climbing is specific to that game. They took something as broad as climbing and they made the mechanic feel special and unique. So much so that when you see those climbing mechanics used in another game like Palworld, you don't just see a climbing mechanic, you specifically notice it as being Breath of the Wild's climbing mechanic. Same goes for Dark Souls dodge rolls. Lots of games have dodge rolling in them, but the way Dark Souls implemented it into the game makes it feel different from other dodge rolls in other games. But whereas these games take inspiration from other mechanics, Palworld just takes. Palworld doesn't just have climbing, it has Breath of the Wild climbing. It doesn't just have creature mechanics, it specifically has creatures that look like Pokemon that you capture in balls that function exactly like Pokeballs. Palworld isn't taking inspiration from other games, it's just taking from other games. But there's actually one more super interesting thing that I discovered whilst reading the negative reviews. Something about Palworld that I didn't previously know about. The fact none of the reviews mention Palworld is literally just a one-to-one copy of the developer's previous game Craftopia is kind of concerning. It even has the exact same bugs. Pocket Pair made Palworld as an asset flip from their previous early access title Craftopia, which at the time of writing is still unfinished. But instead of throwing your spheres at animals, you instead throw them at pals. You see, Palworld is developed by a company called Pocket Pair Incorporated, and if you type Pocket Pair into Google, the very first thing that comes up is their website for a game called Craftopia. And if you watch a little bit of Craftopia gameplay on YouTube, you'll notice that it looks a little bit familiar. As it turns out, Palworld is nothing more than an asset flip of a previous game from the developer. Same visual effects, same gameplay loop, basically everything is almost exactly the same. The animals just aren't called pals, and all the base automation is done with machinery instead of your enslaved little Pokemon guys. This previous game is also an early access release that never actually ended up getting finished. So that's why Palworld feels so soulless. That's why it takes so many ideas from other games. That's why it's so buggy. It explains literally everything. And you might be wondering how a game like this could even become so popular in the first place. How could a game so full of bugs, that's so obviously an asset flip, that's so blatantly plagiarizing from other games, become such an overnight success, becoming the second most played game on Steam of all time? I think the theory that makes the most sense to me is a very simple one. Palworld is successful not because it's a good game that people love, but instead because modern Pokemon, the franchise people are in love with, is so lackluster. Game Freak, the developers of the mainline Pokemon games, are really dropping the ball on most of their modern releases. They've been incredibly rushed, incredibly buggy, and the Switch can barely even run the games in the first place. And Pokemon fans have been crying out for an open-world Pokemon game for God knows how long now, and they've just never received it. So a company like Pocket Pair sees this, and they come along with Palworld. It's clearly a knockoff. It's Tesco's own Pokemon, but it's also open world with crafting mechanics, just like people have been asking for years now. And Palworld might be buggy, but it's not this buggy, so people eat it up. If you ask me, Palworld is nothing but a testament to just how easy it would be for Game Freak to make a Pokemon game that makes $1 billion. All they would have to do is make a game exactly like Palworld, but with real Pokemon in it, and they'd make more money than God. But quite frankly, with the state of modern Game Freak and modern Nintendo, I highly doubt this will ever happen. So until then, Palworld is gonna reign supreme. Thanks for watching.